let us hope not. Let's bring everyone up to date. This is breaking news live from the Pentagon. You can see almost totally obliterated by smoke. Apparently an aircraft has crashed into the Pentagon.
This crash of Flight United 93 with 45 people aboard took place here this morning. She said that she thought a truck had hit her house, but it shook so hard.
Out the window, I didn't see what caused it or if there was an impact.
So you have no idea right now?
There's another one. Another plane just hit. Right. Oh my gosh! Another plane has just hit. It hit another building. Flew right into the middle of it. Explosion.
There's another.
The second tower of the World Trade Center.
Explosions, multiple explosions, ladies and gentlemen. We just saw another explosion. Obviously,
we're just watching it again. It's the first time. This is
the other tower, ladies and gentlemen. Another explosion at tower number 2 of the World Trade Center just happened live on our air.
I think we have a terror attack of proportions that we cannot begin to imagine at this juncture.
I'm a United States Navy veteran, so immediately I thought of the attacks on Pearl Harbor.
Outside my building, everybody just was running everywhere. I live on Staten Island, so I was running towards the ferry.
I just remember kind of the shock of it all.
I can't believe 10 years has gone by, but every so often I still think about it and what happened on that terrible day.
They were having such a hard time getting the firemen to the scene.
Because all the roads were closed. The bridges were closed, the tunnels were closed, and the only way to get around was by water.
I don't think I've ever been prouder to be a member of the maritime community here in New York, the way everybody responded.
I'd say that this remains the largest untold or underappreciated story.
The story of tragedy and heroism that took place on September 11, 2001 has been told many times since that terrible day. We all know of the police officers, firefighters, and medics who endangered themselves and in some cases sacrificed their own lives to save thousands of others. But there's another tale of immense courage and selflessness that remains largely untold. As the World Trade Center collapsed and Lower Manhattan became a scene of chaos, the men and women of New York and New Jersey's maritime community took action, fearlessly crossing the Hudson River, steaming full speed toward the flames, smoke, and devastation that lay ahead. Our nation's seafarers transported passengers out of harm's way and emergency workers food and medical supplies into it. All told, they helped evacuate more than 300,000 people from Lower Manhattan to safety. This is their story.
Our main mission is to safely bring all the vessels in and out of the Port of New York and New Jersey to protect the environment and the economic viability of this port. The on-scene command and control on 9/11 was located on the pilot boat New York, and it was manned by both Coast Guard and Sandy Hook pilots.
Once we found out what was going on, about an hour after the actual events unfolded, we received a call from the United States Coast Guard asking us to dispatch some boats over to Manhattan if we had them available to help out with any evacuation of injured people from the World Trade Center.
Well, the primary purpose of the tugboats is docking ships, transporting oil barges, stone scows to different places, different states, different countries. But at that particular morning was we were to transport people that were running for their lives.
Myself and two other pilots, we were up in downtown Manhattan to renew our licenses. We came back on the ferry, the first ferry that left Manhattan. We boarded the pilot boat and we went back up, and subsequently spent the next 4 days assisting in resupply and attending meetings and doing anything that anybody needed us to do.
Within an hour, we had probably had 150 midshipmen and another 50 members of the faculty and staff who were down at the waterfront saying, put us on boats, get us to the city to help.
In response to the plane attacks on the World Trade Center that day, Staten Island ferries were used for evacuation of Lower Manhattan and through the Battery. When we got passengers on the boat, we got them on the main deck and the saloon deck, and we had everybody quiet down to give them direction and try to calm them down. And it was amazing how attentive the passengers were. They were really looking for some direction as far as what was going on, information, and they were very cooperative as far as protocols, routes to take for egress, donning of life jackets. They were very cooperative and attentive in taking our orders.
It's just everybody just wanted to get out. Everybody was so desperate. They're desperate because they don't know what's going on, and they're desperate because they know they have to get out, and they don't even know why they're getting out, because they just heard 2 planes hit the towers, and that's it.
So we were able to pick up and land at several different locations. Myself picked up at Wall Street, World Financial Center, off the seawall down at Lower Manhattan, and delivered people to Brooklyn, to Jersey City, up to Weehawken, even other parts of New York. We get them out of that spot, and we can go anywhere we had to go.
Rand Towing Corporation is a company that docks ships and tows materials on barges for other people. We're really a full-fledged ship docking and transportation company. We don't normally carry passengers, and we don't normally do evacuations, but I think the spirit of anyone in the merchant marine is if someone's in trouble, you immediately go and help out.
The Academy was crucial initially in getting first responders down to the site. New York is really a waterway city, except for the Bronx, which is the only borough of New York that's on the continental mainland. Everything else in New York is an island. So with the shutting down of the roads and the rails and all the bridges going into Manhattan, it was imperative that we had waterborne transportation.
The Academy is one of the 5 federal service academies operated by the Maritime Administration of the U.S. Department of Transportation. We were dedicated in 1943. Our midshipmen, as part of their license training, as part of their undergraduate education, they learn basic first aid. They are inculcated with the values of service above self.
The first call we got was for EMTs. Any EMTs that were available to please try to get to Manhattan. Well, we happen to have a group of students that are called EMTs. They study all the first aid and so forth. They have the equipment, and they came down, about 15 of them. I came down with them and I said, okay, let's go. We got on the growler and off we went.
It was a bad day. I mean, that's an understatement. But those guys at Kings Point didn't have to come and help. They could have stayed back at school and nobody would have said a word, but they did. And I felt that I had a duty to respond. The guys, Old New York City firemen that responded, had a duty to respond, and we did.
When the chips are down, that Kings Pointers act, and they act with a sense of commitment and courage and character and honor and service for this nation.
We lost 2 graduates that day, Gil Granados from the class of '75 and Robert Collin from the class of '74, and both of those gentlemen were employed in the marine industry, working down in the trade center. In fact, I had the honor and privilege of speaking at Gil Granados' memorial service that we held right here at the Academy at the Mariners Chapel. But the memorial also recognizes the staff and the midshipmen and the Academy community that without hesitation first asked, what can we do to help, and sprung into action. And the Academy's motto is acta non verba, which is deeds, not words.
On the morning of 9/11, I was on my way to school. I was about to board the Staten Island ferry. I had originally heard about the first plane on the radio. Once I boarded the boat, I headed to the front, and that's when I heard and saw the second plane hit the tower.
We knew that there was a lot of lives that was gone, and people were just coming together. I saw people that I ride the ferry every day with that I finally actually hugged and held. I would have never done that on a regular day, but the passion and the loss of all those lives were just crazy. And I'm feeling choked up because I'm remembering that day like if it was yesterday.
I left the pilot boat New York and walked into what was essentially, just a huge war zone. And there was brand new firefighting equipment. This was, 2001. These were like 2001 trucks, fire trucks, Suburbans, things like that. All the equipment that people used to turn out on the initial accident, and it was all destroyed. These vehicles were turned over, upside down, smashed. Sorry. Everything was covered with dust. Everything was white. I ran my finger along a piece of equipment and the red came out and it became real. That this wasn't just a science fiction movie. This really happened.
My job is the safety of my passengers, my vessel, and my crew. And that's what I was concerned about that day. The boat was filled with smoke. The windows were open, like on that boat, you see on the second deck? So the boat filled with smoke. The passengers were praying, some of them were crying. The mates and everybody, they calmed everybody down. We made announcements to keep everybody in check, and we finally got back to St. George, and we're glad we did.
We had people was running and trying to get over the gate to get, and no boat wasn't there yet. They was trying to get over the gate, so we had to calm them down and relax them till the boat start coming over.
So when we got on the ferry, I think there was there was a second crash. But still, we don't have enough information. If you're on the ferry going to work early in the morning, and you're not thinking battlefield condition.
They actually went and made an announcement on the loudspeaker, like I said, and then they started sending crew members throughout the boat, just making sure that everybody got off. I'm sure were concerned. They didn't know what was going on themselves at the time. So I got the feeling that they were concerned not only for the safety of the passengers, but for the safety of the boat. They weren't sure if something might happen on the boat or not. So I believe they did a really good job of making sure that they got everybody off the boat quickly, safely, and to whatever destination they needed to get to.
I did receive a letter probably about a month after 9/11 from a little girl from the West Coast to thank me for rescuing her father that day. And it touched me a lot. I still have that letter, and I keep it with me and take it to work with me every day.
There have been lasting impacts, yes, on the entire industry, because there's been a lot of things that have been introduced since then. From the maritime industry, they looked at this whole situation. If people are willing to do what they did with airplanes, what would stop them from trying to do the same thing with ships, perhaps, or the cargo that ships carry?
We could get like 3,000–4,000 people in a good rush trip. When we came back after we went back to Whitehall just before the building fell, we had a maximum crew. We had at least 6,000 people on the boat. So, that boat is a target.
Right, in the aftermath of 9/11, security for the maritime world, especially here in New York Harbor, changed completely. Congress passed what's known as the Maritime Transportation Security Act, or MTSA, that everyone has to follow. That put into place all types of security procedures that the vessels and terminals have to have. Required to do a security drill every quarter, every boat and every terminal, and we're required to do a security exercise once a year, a large-scale exercise. And so actually we have a very deeply involved relationship with NYPD, the FDNY, and the Coast Guard. Lots of counterterrorism drills. We have officers on our boats on a daily basis, so a lot has changed. The whole security posture of the harbor has changed a great deal since.
We now have courses in maritime security. We have a course in chemical, biological, and radiological defense in one of our marine safety courses. We talk about Department of Homeland Security as a brand new agency that the Coast Guard is now under. And the Coast Guard for years was under the Department of Transportation. And the Coast Guard is the regulatory body for the merchant marine.
Well, the regulations that went into effect after 9/11, they helped us get, number one, a lot more formal protocols in place in writing. Also, the federal government came out with the Port Security Grant Program, which allows companies like us to apply for security equipment and help better equip our boats and our teams if we have to go into action. And of course, since the evacuation that we did on 9/11, we now have a formal Trans-Hudson evacuation plan in place. And there are formal measures in place with law enforcement and response personnel on both sides utilizing our boats to get people in and out of Manhattan in an emergency.
Our mission today is to deliver leaders for our nation that serves the nation's economic, homeland, and national security interests.
The U.S. Merchant Marine has a rich past and an exciting future. And by their selfless action, the people and the stories you have heard provided a beacon of light on one of our nation's darkest days. They were among the heroes running toward danger. They pitched in to carry out the largest unplanned sea lift from American soil. And they continued to show why they deserve our respect and support. Throughout America's history, mariners have been a fundamental backbone of our nation's economy, as well as providing critical supplies for our troops on the front lines and humanitarian assistance to our neighbors abroad. Since September 11, 2001, our merchant sailors have boldly responded to national emergencies, bringing supplies to the victims of the earthquake in Haiti, rescuing airline passengers from U.S. Air Flight 1549 in what is known as Miracle on the Hudson, and saving shipmates from the fire on the Deepwater Horizon, while later responding to the oil spill for cleanup duty. Their service on September 11th, while remarkable, shouldn't surprise anyone familiar with the dedication of the men and women of the U.S. Merchant Marine.
I want the world, I guess, to remember that as bad as it was, and as uncertain as things were that day, there were many, many people willing to help and willing to respond and willing to go into a situation that they really didn't know what the outcome was.